Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much indeed for the opportunity to be your closing speaker for the day. No pressure. So I'm going without the slides in the vague hope that it feels just a little bit more conversational. So, Business in the Community, it's a charity. It's actually the Prince of Wales Responsible Business Network. We've been in existence for over 30 years, and we work with business members to support them in being as responsible as they can be. Most of the businesses you've heard mentioned today are part of our network. Ed talked beautifully earlier about the fact that we live in a world of change. National and global paradigms are shifting. The pace of technological change, if you think it's fast at the moment, well, we haven't seen anything yet. Younger generations have different expectations. So whether that's about environment, whether it's about the fact that they're more globally aware, they're more entrepreneurial, but actually their expectations are a lot higher in terms of how we collectively are looking after our environment at its broadest. Brexit, a totally revised relationship is coming with our neighbours, which in turn is going to lead to a changing economic environment and everything that comes with that, and affects all of the topics that we've been talking about today. And environment, climate change. 3 months ago, who would have thought that plastic straws would have been such a key topic? In a matter of weeks, that has totally changed. More of that is coming our way. So at BITC, we work to create healthy communities with successful businesses at their heart. Our intent is to enable businesses to be the best they can be in delivering social, environmental and economic sustainability across all areas of their business. There is total synergy with what you saw presented just now in terms of the Social Value Act. And we also ask them to join together with other businesses to bring together their collective strength and be a force for good. Through our extensive work with businesses across the UK and beyond, we've developed an in-depth understanding of the challenges that face communities, most especially the entrenched sense of inequality and lack of trust of the 4 key institutions that shape our society. And I think the broad brush of this probably covers most of this room. Business, government, the non-profit sector, and media amongst the British public. Edelman's Trust Barometer research, a global annual study, continues to illustrate a really telling story. Their 2018 survey came back with the fact that only 46% of people trust non-profit organisations. The government, any government, local authority included, is only trusted by 36%. The media are at the bottom of the pile on 32%, there's hope for all of us. 55% of people don't feel that their views are represented in British politics. So this whole discussion that we're having today, half the population don't feel that that's representative of where they would be coming from. 46% are concerned that people are becoming less tolerant. Only 43% of the population trust business. And amongst the younger generations, that drops to 38%. That's the future workforce, the future customer base. In our interaction with communities, all of us should be aware that that is our starting point, and distrust in business is part of the climate that we face into when we're looking to engage around social value and be seen to be contributing at local level. As industry and business evolve and technology advances, communities have been left behind. There's growing inequality. 70% of working age households in poverty have someone doing paid work. So whether it's councils in the room or businesses, people either in our own organisations or in our supply chain will be in that situation. 4 million children in the UK live in poverty and 150 families become homeless every day. So this is all, and all of you have articulated it beautifully today, but it is all about not just regenerating, but joining us all up together to actually do something that is mutually beneficial and repositions all of this together. That lack of trust and the sense that the current system isn't working is reflected in what's happening around us, in protests, in people's responses, in voting, and it underlines again and again that part of the opportunity we should take with social value is to rebuild trust, to grow the social value in the way that actually the people involved in this want to be receiving it, and restore faith in all of those institutions in communities. Business needs resilient and growing communities in order to succeed. We talk about business as though it's something separate. A number of phrases today have made it sound almost back to animal farm territory of good and bad, but actually every business will have employees locally. Their customers live there. It's the backdrop to where the business exists and to our own working lives. The disconnection and lack of trust isn't only damaging for communities and society in general, it's also potentially really damaging to the very markets that the businesses depend upon. There was a point, Peter, that you made earlier about not actually just sort of setting a line that says this is the minimum we want you to do. If all you ask is to that point, that is all you will get. But if you can create aspiration locally, which a number of people, and thank you Jerome and Peter, talked about, creating that aspiration for people to deliver to, we can really start to make a phenomenal difference. I have an example. For the most innovative and astute businesses, there's a real opportunity for innovation and sustainable growth through working locally. Local places provide opportunities to rebuild the trust, to generate social value, but create commercial difference as well. Our responsible business of the year this year is Anglian Water. They like to think local. They are based around the Fenlands. They look after very local responsibilities for the water industry across the East Anglia area. And what they look to do is start local and then upscale given the opportunity. They build long-term partnerships with communities, farmers, conservationists, regulators, and the company then is seen as a hub for collective action to tackle social issues. Anglian Water wanted to collaborate both locally with all the key stakeholders, but also to involve all its employees and to take its intensive, extensive supply chain and engage them as well to make sure that all of the business, right the way through the supply chain, understood the local issues and would be able to be embedded into the communities in which they work. They identified a huge potential for growth and innovation in Fenland. Wisbech, where they're headquartered, is widely known, which means probably you've all visited, as the capital of the Fens. And it's home to a quarter of all Fenland's residents. It's well known for its elegant Georgian facades, terrific architecture, and people who are very proud of its history and traditions. But the town faces a lot of really tough challenges. high levels of deprivation, unemployment, and as with a lot of these far-flung places, issues with the aspiration of their youth. The national index that measures health, education, crime, employment or lack of it, and barriers to housing and services shows parts of Wisbech featuring in the 10% most deprived areas nationally. Its traditional employment in the food sector has changed dramatically. It's been decimated. Rail transport links have been lost. Road links suffer from underinvestment, which leaves the population increasingly cut off from economic and social networks that they would need to really thrive. Anglian Water, 6 years ago, believed that the key to moving these challenges forward was to bring together a range of stakeholders to facilitate cross-sector collaboration. They joined a partnership with local councils, MPs, created a new vision for Wisbech and became a real driving force with a 2020 vision for Wisbech that actually came into being what is now 4 years ago. They placed a secondee via Business in the Community's Business Connector programme into Wisbech and took that individual out of their day job and said, right, for 3 years, you are going to be our key interface with the local infrastructure, all sectors. They brought together the senior leaders from their tier one suppliers, created a steering group to support the connector in place, underwrote this long-term project and set their sights on working with the Wisbech community alongside them, co-designing solutions to make a real transformational change. They listened to local needs, they listened to understand what some quick wins might be, and they listened to understand what would really drive the long-term future of the town. They've worked with a local charity to secure a lease on a disused school and refurbished it to create a thriving and profitable community centre. That community centre is now being used to host a weekly job cafe and to do the now annual Wisbech Job Fair. Last year that allowed 134 people to get work in the local community. They've worked with the Thomson Clarkson Academy, a newly formed academy in the town, and the College of West Anglia to raise aspiration and attainment. The college now runs 2 new courses on engineering and construction, which are sponsored by the different businesses that are part of the consortium supporting it. And 14 students from the very first year have now gained employment within that supply chain. I guess what I'm trying to get across is we talk quite a bit about social value in terms of what's achievable through hitting a can you do this for us but actually the strength that can come from co-design and collaboration to deliver long-lasting change meant that the overall vision that was required was to think big, but think collaboratively. They're now working on the transport infrastructure, which connects Wisbech to Peterborough and Cambridge, and everybody working together to say, can we now reopen the railroad that was closed down by beaching and get access back into the Fenlands? There's also now a proposal that Wisbech becomes one of the garden towns with 12,000 new homes, and Anglians supporting a groundbreaking approach to flood modelling, totally new approach to investigate how the garden town could be created alongside that whole new approach to climate management in collaboration. So what does this tell us? The importance of mutual understanding and equitable partnership between the sectors in delivering the best results for the people in the community. That for businesses and the public sector to work effectively in communities, they need to understand their role, the impacts that they can have, and the ways they can collaborate, co-design responses with others to create positive change. It's just one example, and I guess what I would ask you all to do is reflect internally on your organisation and how you influence and impact a community through your policies and work practices. Look at how you embrace diversity. Interesting question for this particular room today. Understanding your environmental impact, investing in the growth in future workforce, developing sustainable products, developing sustainable relationships, and explore how the power of business, the community sector, local authorities can really come together to adopt a fresh approach to building healthy communities that is not necessarily about legislative drive, though I recognise it can be started from that position, but actually lift it to a different position. Thank you very much.